afternoon and welcome to Rave Waves Eyes on the Book Show. A quick reminder that May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So let's all take a moment to slow down and breathe to ensure that we're taking care of ourselves. I'm your host, Rox Berkey, broadcasting live from Dallas, Texas. Today, our show is being sponsored by Terrace Call by PTL Prin. Thank you so much. If you'd like to know how to get your own commercial to air during one of our shows, just visit the Rave Waves tab on the RRBC website for information. It's a fantastic way to promote your books. And I'm delighted joining us today from Kent in the United Kingdom is the author of One Chance Encounter, Joy Gerken, who writes under the pen name of Joy M. Lilly. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
So listeners, if you have any questions or comments for Joy, I will be opening up the floor for those questions and comments throughout the show. Your mics will remain muted until that time, and I ask that you give just a little wave of your hand if you want to be recognized. At that time, you'll be asked to unmute your mic. You can also access the chat function located at the bottom of your screen to type your questions or comments to us. Again, thank you for joining us today, Joy. We are so delighted to learn about you and your book.
Thank you.
You know, I think the audience, Joy, would like to learn about what you did before you became a writer first.
Right. Well, I went into nursing way back in the 60s.
Wow.
And in the UK, in those days, we had a training called SEN. That was a state enrolled nurse. And those nurses were considered helpers for the RGNs, as you know them in the States.
Okay.
But after about 17 years, I got itchy feet and felt, that I wanted to become an RGN. So in 1981, I started to train for my registration. And cutting a long story short, I have been a nurse, or had been a nurse, for nearly 50 years when I retired.
Oh my gosh, that's terrific. Congratulations on that accomplishment.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So many people, that's amazing.
Yes, and I think that my next story should be about my career, my nursing career.
Awesome. So at this point, are you a full-time writer or is it just a hobby for you?
Well, it's a hobby for me, I have to confess. Okay. I always wanted to write and never ever found the time when I was working. I was full-time as a nurse and pretty exacting work and didn't have time to write. Toward the latter part of my career, I cut my hours down and then I found myself with a bit of time to start to write. And I enjoyed it. I don't know that I'm that good at it, but I'm learning.
No, the book we're going to talk about is really good. I've read it. So you reside in Kent, in the United Kingdom, and I'm sorry, I'm a Yank. So can you tell me a little bit about where Kent is and how we might get to it if we wanted to travel over to it?
Right. Well, we're about 70 miles from London, which of course is the capital of England. So not really too far to travel. It's the largest county in the UK, and it's known as the Garden of England because we have so many hop fields.
Oh.
Many hop fields. And in the days before machinery came in, a lot of people who were really quite poor from the big city and also locally used to go up and pick the hops by hand.
Nice.
Yeah.
So has your location found its way into some of the stories that you've been writing?
Certainly, yes. Time's Pendulum Swings Again is certainly all about hospital life.
I think that's really fun. So you liked the idea of writing for a long time. So when did you, even though you were working, when did you actually decide to start seriously doing some writing, even as a hobby?
Right, that was, let me think now, that would have been 2000 and about 2015 when I retired for good.
Ah, all right. So, there's a lot of comments in the chat window right now about people that like Kent and have been there and visited. I think Linnea said she's visited and walked the Dover Cliffs, which of course,
yes,
that's
they're
amazing.
they're very close to us. The White Cliffs of Dover, very near. And you'd all be welcome to come and visit, I can assure you.
All right. As soon as everything opens up, you just may find your doorstep full of people. You never know.
No problem. No problem. I'd love to see you all.
So, many authors, even those who don't write full time, really like to target when they like to write. And so, do you have any kind of a schedule you kind of like to adhere to?
No, not at all. Not at all. I'll have an idea in my head and start to put it onto paper. I don't have any set system, which I'm sure I should have. I think that would probably help.
I don't know. I'm hearing in the notes that, that you're like a lot of others. It's, no schedule, having fun. I don't think there's a right or wrong to it if you can produce a great story. So do you have a place that you like to write? Or because you have ideas, you just carry a book with you?
Yes. What I do quite a lot of reading early in the morning in bed. And I've got a notepad. And sometimes, something will strike me as being a very good statement or a good sentence to write. And I will refer to that perhaps. And I love words. And if I hear a new word, I like to pop that down somewhere. And I will always have to look it up because there's so many words in the English language.
Well, there are. You got that right. And it's always good to learn a word a day. That was something we did when I was a child, is we had to learn a word a day. And as Wanda says very apropos, so many words, so little time. Absolutely.
Yes. Very true.
So, let's get into your contemporary romance, One Chance Encounter. How did you come up with the character, and I think I pronounced it correctly, Moira?
Moira, yes, Moira. I had a friend who got herself into a lot of trouble by linking with somebody on the World Wide Web.
Ooh.
And I thought this could make a bit of a story. And that's what it is. It's a bit of a story. It's only short. There is a sequel to it coming up, and not yet published, but it will be soon. But I just thought that maybe some ladies of a mature age could be very, very tempted by some of the wickedness actually that goes on the internet. And as I say, my friend really did think that she'd met the love of her life. And of course, he took her for many thousands of pounds, and it was a con, all a big con. And this is really what the story is about. A mature lady looking for love, certainly in the wrong places. Would you like me to tell you a bit more about the actual story briefly?
I'd like you to tell the audience, I have read it and I was thrilled with it, but I'd like from your voice for you to kind of share just a little bit with the audience, please.
Right, okay then. Well, she'd had a very uneventful, boring sort of a life, and she was working on a farm in Surrey, which is the next county to Kent in England. And a stranger came along and wanted to ask directions. And she thought she recognized him. And eventually it clicked who he was. And he was a famous American celebrity. And she asked him, she said, "Oh, are you?" And he said, "Yes, yes, that's me." So, she was absolutely thrilled to bits. And later in the story, she receives a beautiful bouquet of flowers from Tom. Now, Tom Ursuline is the guy's name in the book, but of course it was based a bit on Tom Cruise. Although, of course, I couldn't put his name. Now, so he's rewarded her with a bouquet of flowers, and she then starts thinking about how she can thank him. She's so delighted. Excuse me, ladies, got to have a sip of gin.
Oh, good call.
Dry throat. So she begins a conversation on the net with Tom Cruise, Tom Ursuline, and leading to her actually going to Los Angeles. Over she goes, and she meets up with a guy named Grant, who is the go-between for her and Tom. Well, after many, many excuses, she realizes that she's been duped. And the sad thing about poor old Moira is that she considers herself an intelligent, streetwise lady, so would never, be sort of conned by anything like this. She actually didn't lose any money, but she certainly lost a lot of pride and her ego very severely dented. And that's basically the story.
Yeah, no, and it's a fascinating story. I don't want you to give away the ending because I want everyone to take a read. But I found her. She has a good background. You build a very good, strong character, and it's someone who's very hardworking, which
Yes.
a lot of women in that mid-range age, they've worked really hard, and they can get duped. And I see several notes about people that have friends or they have been impacted by somebody. It's like you can't be too careful. And in your case, the story isn't even about the internet as much as it's about she actually met this person to begin with. So it feels different for her. So that's an amazing way to do it. The other thing is, I thought the cover of your story was extremely interesting because the graphics are not what I would think of from a romance or a potential romance kind of cover. This is a woman who is pitchfork in her hand and focused in a barn, and it's a very, very interesting cover. So I would guess your cover design was an interesting story as well. How did you come up with that?
Well, I went through quite a lot of various covers before I came up with the one I wanted. And there were several different changes to it. I don't think I'm allowed to say where I got it from, am I?
No, but
not. So I had several to choose from, which was wonderful, and altered it a number of times, and then that was the one I thought I was very, very careful not to have him look like Tom Cruise, as you can imagine. I didn't want to be
problems, or it could really have it fly off the shelves. Actually, of course, he'd be probably not happy. So you admitted before that you don't write full time. So how long did it take you to put this novel together? Because it released in, just before the pandemic in February of 2020.
Right, yeah. Probably a few months. As I said, Rox, I don't have any system for writing, and it's really if I'm, feeling in the mood to do it. Life is quite busy for me. I have a big family, and you know, there's always somebody at the door, or always something going on. I like that. I mean, that suits me fine. But because I suppose I have other things to think about, it would have. I think that one took me about 6 months.
Well, I think it was 6 really good months because, again, this is a really, really good story. At least I thought it was a good story. But you have several novels
Yes.
that are in kind of the romance kind of category. Is that your favorite genre?
Well, I suppose it is. The Liberty Bodice was a World War II drama.
Yeah.
It does have some romance in it, but that's not the main theme of that particular book. So I suppose that one was a little bit different. Yes, I think I could. Yes, it's fair to say that romance is probably my genre.
So, do you like to read it as well, or do you read across multiple genres and love them all?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in a book club, and that, you know, from that point of view, it's excellent because you don't read anything that you would normally perhaps pick up. You have somebody else's choice to read, and some very, very good books are out there. Brilliant, brilliant reading. So a multi-genre as far as my reading is concerned.
So, you know, we have some comments in the chat room, and I want to open it up and see if anyone would like to pose a question at this point to Joy, because I know there's been some really interesting little comments. So, does anyone have a question? It's a quiet group today.
But they're busy in chat.
They really are. Pat, if you'd like to unmute, I'd love for you to ask a question.
I think I asked all my questions in the chat. One, I wanted to know, do you write romantic suspense also? And that was one, and I got a couple of other questions in there. And about the pantser plotter. So you write a book in 6 months and you basically don't plot it, you just write from your head?
Yeah, I don't have any plot at all. I just write, and it changes as I go along. Always, always.
When do you edit it? When do you edit your book? Do you edit after you're completely finished, or do you start and you pick up the next day and you keep writing, or do you edit what you've written already and then keep writing?
No, I have editing done at the end, and I don't do that. I ask others to do that for me.
Fantastic. I like that. It's always better.
Hey, thank you, Pat. So Marion had a comment in the window, Joy, that I really liked, and it said that she likes your family encounters, that they enrich your writing and not detract from it. It seems that you're not uptight about interruptions. Is that true?
I'm not. I'm a bit irritated, maybe inside, but I would try not to let other people know that. But yeah, no, I suppose now I'm retired, you know, what's the point of getting uptight, you know, if the grandchildren come round and want to celebrate something, loads of birthdays go on. I've got 6 grandchildren and I've got 4 great-grandchildren. So it's a big family.
Congratulations. Do they all have your nice warm smile? That's what I need to know.
I know, she has a beautiful smile.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Wanda, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's interesting that you have a background in nursing. And do you think that all of the encounters that you had over that career in nursing helps you in character development, the people that you've met throughout the years? Do you take pieces back and forth of people to help you develop a character?
Indeed, I do wonder. Yes, I do. having met so many people over that, over my life, you know, I think it certainly enriches, you know, what you can put into a character, certainly. And many of the people that I've written about, you know, I've known in some way or another.
I think
Great
it's a good way
question,
to make
Wanda.
a composite. It's a good way to make a composite, to use your experiences of the people that you've encountered. And then
Yes.
somebody can say to you, oh, that was Joan that you used to work with on the second shift in the hospital. And you say, no, it wasn't Joan. It was, you know,
So yeah.
she might have said, use that phrase when you met her, but that it wasn't Joan. It was somebody, you know, but you might have seen some Joan in her. Yeah.
In fact, I don't know if any of you have read Time's Pendulum Swings Again, but that actually is based on a very dear friend of mine, very loosely based, because her story had a very sad ending, but that story doesn't.
Mhm.
But that was certainly based on somebody I know well.
So Marion, did you have a question as well? You're actually unmuted.
Oh, no, I didn't. I'm just soaking it all in. But I want to say something about writers, mature writers, myself included. We have so much life experience to draw upon. And that's what I'm noticing here with Joy and other writers. We've met so many people. It's like a screen
Yeah,
that we, a deep well that we draw from. So,
that's right.
and I'm glad to see so many writers, you know, who have a second career. She was a nurse, I was a teacher. We met many people.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing when we're writing character and plotting our plots and
Exactly.
describing our scenes.
Exactly. And I found that the detailed character development in One Chance Encounter makes your characters very, very relatable. And maybe it is from the mature side that Marion just mentioned, or maybe it's because you have a method to develop your characters that you need to share with us.
Yes, I think that's probably true.
So when you start writing your story, do you actually have, you know, an idea of what you want that character to do?
No, I don't. I really don't.
Okay.
You know, it just sort of comes as I'm writing, you know, as I go along, something else will slip in. That's the way I write.
And I think that's great. You know, your character, the American actor, Tom Ursuline, I think is the name that you put in your story for him. You already mentioned that he, you know, he's kind of another famous Tom. But, you know, you wanted to put him in the story. So is he like one of your favorite actors?
I suppose, yes, really. I think he's an excellent actor. I mean, he's a bit short, but he is, of all the films that I've watched him in, I think he was brilliant, is brilliant.
So you mentioned that you've got a sequel coming to One Chance Encounter. And
I have.
it's going to come soon. Do we know the title for that book yet?
The title is With Tears in Her Eyes, but it isn't as sad as it may sound, so don't worry about that. And it'll be with us probably within the next 2 weeks.
Wow. So we could all have some of the first copies of that story out. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have anyone else that has a question for Joy before I continue? I don't want to hog the questions. Pat came up with another one. Do you consider your storytelling to be sad?
Sorry, Rox, can you repeat that?
Pat wants to know if you consider your storytelling to be sad.
Well, yes, in some ways, I think that's fair to say. Yeah, but I do have happy endings sometimes.
I kind of found some of it within One Chance Encounter a little reflective. That was probably the strongest quality for me, Pat, personally, was it was reflective.
Hmm.
Okay. So I know that you are a member of RRBC, which makes you part of this terrific family.
Yeah.
How long have you been an active member?
I think it's about 3 years. I'm pretty certain 3 years now, yes.
And how would you describe all the support that you get from RRBC to another author who's looking for support? You know, one of your buddies who's an author, maybe not part of this group. How would you describe the support?
I think it's absolutely fabulous. I really, really do. I've never ever seen it anywhere else. I just think it's magnificent, and I would encourage anybody to, you know, to join. And I do. Whether they take it up or not, I don't know. I'm not sure. But I certainly, the support that I've had has been second to none.
I have to agree with you. And a lot of different opportunities in this group. Are you taking advantage of the short story contest that's coming up?
Oh, yes, yes, I've taken advantage of that. And that is causing me a few sleepless nights. Trying to get it all done. I'm thinking, crikey, 90 days, we've got to have it edited, proofread, edited.
You can do it.
And on Amazon, you know, a big ask.
You can do it, Joy.
I hope so.
Oh, I know you can.
That is so
So,
fun.
You
I'm sure a few other ladies have done the same. Oh.
Well, I kind of made the mistake of signing up for 2, and I'm telling you, I'm sweating bullets. So
Yes, same here. That's what I did.
How many of you signed on for the contest? Linnea, you did. Yes, great. We're going to have some awesome short stories really soon. I am so excited. You can all do it.
Good.
So Joy, earlier on you mentioned that you have grandchildren and great-grandchildren, so I know that they're fun. So of all the terrific things that you get to do in Kent, what's your favorite thing to do to relax? Just to chill.
I like eating out.
Oh.
And of course, not been able to do that for nearly 18 months now because of lockdown. We really have been hit hard in Kent. In fact, some of you may have heard of the Kentish strain of the virus.
Mm-hmm.
Not good, not good. But we're getting there. It's a lot better now. And I've had both the jabs. And I believe in the States, you're now having a lot more of the vaccinations going on. Yes? Is that true?
Yes.
Very, very important that everybody is vaccinated. This is my nurse hat talking, but it's so important to get those vaccinations, everyone. You know, I mean, it's the only thing that's going to kick this blinking virus out of the way.
And your word choice is so sweet. You know, that was good.
It is.
So Joy, we're just about out of time. So I want to thank you very much for joining us here today for Eyes on the Book and allowing us to get to know you better, as well as share your very unique story with us.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you. You've been awesome. I want to come visit you. I'll be there soon. So now it's time for us to take a small break and pay some bills. Nani? Oh my gosh, that is awesome. Thank you so much, Patty, for that. That is terrific. And I noticed that Robbie was on and a couple of other people I didn't greet earlier, Karen. Thank you very much. To my studio audience, you make these shows extra special, so thank you for joining us here today as well. Remember, if you miss a live show, you can always find each and every episode in the archives of the RRBC site. And as a reminder again to all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day from RRBC. And we hope that your tomorrow is amazing and relaxing. We all know that a mom's job is the hardest, yet the most rewarding job in the world. This is your host, Roxburgh. Thanking you for joining us on another episode of Eyes on the Book, a Rave Waves production. Be sure to join us again for another episode where all things literary are our passion. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.